What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to take a look at a lightweight, dynamic fighter by the name of Slugger White. Now, Slugger White was born February 18, 1918 in Athens, Georgia. He lived in Baltimore, Maryland, and lived in Brooklyn, New York as well. He stood 5 foot 6 inches and he weighed 127 to 143.5 pounds. He was managed by Sam Lampy. Now, Slugger White was a top contender for many years. He was most notably known for his outstanding fight against Sammy Angot in 1943. Sammy Angot was a fascinating fighter. He was P.D. Cerrone's last fight in 1939. He was his last opponent. And he fought Willie Pep and stopped Willie Pep's 62-0 winning streak. Sammy Angot became lightweight champion of the world as well. So Slugger White was recognized as world lightweight champion in the state of Maryland and fought for the NBA lightweight championship of the world. He defeated fighters such as Juan Zarita, outstanding lightweight, Sammy Julian. Sammy Julian was another dynamite fighter that's underestimated. Ralph Zanetti. Ralph Zanelli was a good fighter. John Thomas. Willie Joyce. Fascinating fighter was Willie Joyce. Leo Ruddock. Leonard Bennett. Jimmy Leto. Jimmy Leto would be P.D. Saren's first fight. Actually, third professional fight. Bernie Miller, Mike Evans, Tommy Spingo, Oliver White, just to name a few. So let's look a little closer at Slugger White's career. As you can see here, Slugger White was born February 18, 1918. He was 137 pounds at top notch. He stood 5 foot and 6 inches. And he began his professional debut in 1937, March 19th, fighting a familiar fellow by the name of Holman Williams. Now, Holman Williams was an outstanding middleweight, dynamite, murderous rope fighter. He fought him in New Orleans and was knocked out in 4 rounds. Now, if you want to learn more about Holman Williams, go into Holman Williams Scrapbook Boxing or Holman Williams Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series, and you'll learn more about Holman Williams, and you'll understand why Slugger White was knocked out in the 4th round. Fascinating fighter in Holman Williams. 1938, January 10th, Georgie Martin. He defeated him in 10 rounds. January 17th, Vincent Pepper Reed. That was his nickname. Vincent Pepper Reed in Newark, New Jersey. No contest in 2 rounds. He lost to Eddie Alzek in Brooklyn, New York. Lost in 6 rounds. February 18th, he fought Sammy Julian. Very good fighter. New York. He was knocked out in the 3rd round by Sammy Julian. His next loss would be against a fighter by the name of Vincent Chuano in River Falls, New York. Lost to him in 10 rounds. He would face Pancho Villa, and he would knock him out in 7 rounds. Sammy Julian again, New York, defeat him in 4 rounds. Kid Howie, Washington, D.C., defeat him in 6 rounds. 1939, Slugger White would face Mickey Harlan on October 6th in New York City, and he would defeat him in 4 rounds. Austin McCon, New York City, defeat him in 4 rounds. He would fight him November 7th. He would have 2 more victories in 1939, and he would defeat all his opponents in 1940. He would face Ralph Zanelli in Falls River, defeat him in 10 rounds on February 29th, 1940. Pancho Villa, 4 Rivers, defeat him in 10 rounds on June 7th, 1940. 1941, he would have a complete year, as you can see here. January 9th, Dave Chacon, Baltimore, Maryland. Knock him out in 5 rounds. January 18th, Oliver White, Brooklyn, New York. 6-round draw. January 31st, Leonard Bennett, Baltimore, Maryland. Knock him out in 7 rounds. Tony Reno, Falls River. Defeat him in 8 rounds. On March 14th, he would face a fascinating fighter by the name of Bernie Miller. Now, Bernie Miller, a lot of people haven't heard of this fighter. He was trained a lot in Stillman's gym. He had a lot of fights in the West Coast, but he was a murderous puncher. And to get that win over Bernie Miller in St. Nicholas Arena was a fascinating victory. Slugger White defeated him in 6 rounds. Tommy Spingal, another good fighter, Washington, defeated him in 10 rounds. Leo Ruddock, Baltimore, Maryland. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. Frankie Wills, Baltimore, Maryland. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. On July 14th, he would face Bob Montgomery, Baltimore. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. August 11th, Mike Evans. He would face him 3 times in a row. September 8th and October 14th. Twice in Baltimore, once in Philadelphia. He would lose to him twice, and he would defeat him once. Jimmy Leto, November 3rd. As I said, he was P.D. Saren's 3rd or 4th opponent. He was a good fighter. Fought him in Baltimore, Maryland. Defeated him in 10 rounds. Terry Norman and Louis Coco Kidd. December 8th, he would face Coco Kidd in Baltimore, Maryland. He would lose to him in 15 rounds. As you know, Coco Kidd was an outstanding welterweight. He was a murderous row fighter. And he was not an easy opponent to defeat, I assure you. Holman Williams had his time with Coco Kidd. 1942, Buster Carroll, good fighter. Jimmy Kid Hatcher. Billy Davis. He would lose to Leo Ruddock in 10 rounds, and he would defeat Leo Ruddock in Baltimore. Defeat him in 12 rounds. September 25th, Willie Joyce, New Orleans. He would lose to Willie Joyce in 12 rounds. 1943, January 4th, he would face Willie Joyce again in Baltimore, Maryland. Defeat him in 15 rounds. Jose Mendoza in Stockton, knock him out in 7 rounds. He would face Juan Zarita on June 15th, Los Angeles, California. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. Pedro Ortega, Oakland, California. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. Sammy Angot, October 27th, Hollywood, California. He would lose to him in 15 rounds for the NBA World Lightweight Championship. And that's the fight I was telling you. That was an outstanding fight between him and Sammy Angot. Fascinating. So I just wanted to touch on Luther Slugger White's career. Fascinating. Let's take a look at some of his opponents. Now, Slugger White fought a fighter by the name of Bernie Miller. This is Bernie Miller. Fascinating fighter. Like I said, he trained a lot in Stillman's gym. And he ran across some great fighters. He was a murderous puncher. Was Bernie Miller. Fascinating fighter. Fascinating fighter was Bernie Miller. He would face Mike Evans. Mike Evans was a stand-up fighter. Hard puncher. As you can see here, he beat Slugger White. Now here you have Holman Williams. Fascinating murderous row middleweight. Now once again, I did a profile on Holman Williams. Take a look at Holman Williams. Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Look up Holman Williams. Fascinating fighter. Here you see Willie Joyce. Willie Joyce was a dynamic fighter as well. Four greatest fighters such as Henry Armstrong. And here you have Sammy Engot. 1943, they had an outstanding go. Fascinating. Slugger White's opponents. So that's Luther Slugger White. Outstanding fighter. Managed by Sam Lampe. Let's take a look. One more opponent, Bob Montgomery. And here you have Bob Montgomery. Now I did a profile on Bob Montgomery. You can look at Bob Montgomery, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series, or Bob Montgomery, Scrapbook Boxing. Fascinating fighter was Bob Montgomery. He was known as the Bobcat. As you can see here, he knocked out Ike Williams to earn It went back and forth. Montgomery, Bojack, Bob Montgomery, Bojack, Jimmy Carter, Sammy Engot. Outstanding group of fighters at that time. And Luther Slugger White was no different. Salute to Luther Slugger White. Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Salute to my subscribers. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Peace.